Here we are. Once again, here we are.
Yay!
Oh, well, today SHR published our new playbook. Loyalty isn't a program, it's an experience, which is a whopper. It's 8,000 words to help hotels vary the outdated programs
Yeah.
and build loyalty.
hmm
So, as a major contributor, Allegra Medina, the VP of Direct Channels at SHR, I wanted to speak with you.
Excellent.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Now, if you could recite those 8,000 words, we'll all be quiet.
I'll sum up.
Yeah, some of 'em. Yeah, it got out of hand, but it's nice. There's a
It is
lot
nice.
there.
It's got a lot of good information, and what's most interesting to me is, um, well, for me personally, is these are conversations and things and sentiment that we've been having for a long time in the industry, and that providers just seem to, and hoteliers alike seem to have real challenges kind of getting executing on it, and changing mindset a little bit. So I'm hopeful, as always, that little bit by bit we can bring people along for the ride and help people upskill.
Yeah. So let's go big with the
Okay.
first question.
All right.
So
Ready.
what's the one thing you think hotels are getting completely wrong about loyalty today?
Well, mainly I think that we're outdated. We're kind of stuck in the past of how things used to be, how we used to operate. There are still big box brands that have really kind of, um, I'm going to say, challenging and expensive programs, earn points, gain 10 million points, and then you can maybe redeem them for a free night or a beverage or something or an upgrade or whatever. But it takes a lot for customers to accumulate things. And while that works in some regards, really what people are looking for is more instant gratification. They want to know that they're important along the way, that they're valuable. It's why earning a bunch of miles when you're flying with an airline is great and you can spend them, but it feels even better to get that upgrade to first class on your flight that you didn't expect because you were a gold member or something. So it's just kind of being able to really recognize people from the moment they're experiencing a part of your property, and that starts with their online journey often, right? So making sure that if somebody shows up on your website, that they can have a seamless experience, that they're recognized immediately, they authenticate, they're served up rates and offers and things that are special just for them, and you make them feel valued whether they've stayed one time or 100 times, right? You're giving them something that they can see and feel. So, and it's frictionless, it's seamless, so it feels good to them. um, I think it's that experience. So it's not just like points. You can have very effective points programs, they exist, and they can be very effective, but if you don't feel like it's valuable from the start, then it it doesn't get movement, right? It doesn't, people aren't loyal to brands in that way as much as they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking I've been using Capital One forever for travel
hmm
points,
hmm
and I don't use them like you might think I would. Where they where those points do show up is on Amazon.
Right.
So that's seamless. They know me. I go there. There's
hmm
like, okay, hey, remember you got some points over here, brother.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a that's actually a really good example, because I do the cashback offers or whatnot, because I can utilize that. So the Amazon card is a great example of that too, because you get that 6% cashback and then you can just apply it to your next purchase and it keeps you buying more, right? But it's instant. It's
Yeah.
there right away.
Yeah.
Um, for me to see, it's always kind of in my face. So I'm feeling like I'm getting something when, the reality is I'm just spending more money, but I feel good doing it.
just another sucker.
That's right. I'm no better than anyone.
But yeah, I get it. Yeah, you're not waiting
Yeah.
around.
Mm-mm. Nope. I have so an example of this that happened to me recently is I am a member of it's a big box brand, and I went to I've been a member for years, but I don't stay a lot. Um, and I'm second in line at the checkout counter or check-in counter, and the person in front of me was clearly a higher level than I was, and the care that that person got and catering, the hey, you're here early, let's give you a complimentary early check-in, oh, you're so great here, gave him all this stuff and like fawned over him. And then I come up in line next and they look at my account and they're like, oh, here's a bottle of water, oh, you need an early check-in, it's $100. And I was treated so obviously different, like it was blatantly different. Of course he should get more benefits than I get if I don't stay as much, maybe he's corporate traveler, whatever, but I was made to feel the same way that fishnet thing and airplanes make you know that you can't go into first class, right? Like it was
Yeah,
palpable,
yeah,
and uncomfortable, quite frankly.
yeah,
And so hotels extend that experience in their online journey, right? By having all of these barriers to feeling like they're being like like you're important and you're valuable.
yeah, yeah. I was going to bring up the big brands. So the OTAs and the big brands both
Mhm.
are clearly outpacing independents in building loyalty and retention. So, what can independents learn from the way these others have really redefined guest loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is we're always competing with independents, always competing with the big bucks, right? By way of you, especially with corporate travel and things like that, where this is revenue management normal. That there are certain areas where it's harder to compete in. But the things that we can control are the things that the OTAs do really well because they have boatloads of money to make sure that they do it really well, which is their online experience. It's very easy to go to an OTA and find what you need and filter what you're looking for. And with booking.com, get a genius rate, or with Expedia, sign in and get, some kind of special OTA offer by way of loyalty. In that case, you're not brand loyal at all, but you're loyal to the process because it's so easy. And you get something that you can see and feel and touch right then and there throughout the journey. So I think that like really trying to figure out ways to personalize the experience, using tools that everybody's talking about AI, but that actually apply AI to your booking journey when possible, right? To help personalize the experience. And even without AI, you can do it very simply by having the kind of it's not a new idea, but having your booking engine and your website serve up information that is relevant to the guest at the time, right? So if I've stayed at your hotel before and I sign in and maybe the last time I stayed was exactly a year ago this month, maybe I get a special offer that's a comeback for me only because I'm coming back a year later and we say happy anniversary. You can do that in a meaningful, seamless way. And this is something that the bigger brands, or the ones with a lot of money, OTAs and stuff, that they do really well because they can, right? And independents can do it too, but I think that there's this kind of misnomer you that it costs too much, or that it's really horrible or hard to manage, and that they don't have the people or the bandwidth to do it. But you can actually do a very straightforward, seamless experience with just very little effort. You just have to prioritize it, right?
Yeah,
um
there's
yeah.
a excuse me. There's a good um, stat in the mini book. Like 15% of travelers book exclusively. Only 15%
No.
with loyalty programs. So even and then I was reading something a while back, in preparation for the, going through the book and everything. Like loyalty programs for even the big brands, there's a lot of people, but it's kind of stagnant. I mean, what do you think's driving the low loyalty engagement?
Um, I think there's two things. So one is going to be the perception of value. So is there a value driven experience for me? But the even if you try to do that, you're going to have a problem if you have fragmented technology, and if your recognition is poor. So like a booking engine, they don't all just recognize loyal members. They don't all serve up special offers to them that are geared to them. Everybody has a sign in and get 10% off. Um, but that's not quite enough. You're merchandising around that. There needs to be value. I can perceive that I can get something similar anywhere else, right? So adding a value to that, but really recognizing those perks throughout the journey, I think is important, and that's what's missing. And then keeping that experience all the way through. These systems aren't all talking to each other. Your booking engine isn't talking to your CRM. It's not talking to your distribution system, and then that data is not flowing down to the PMS. And so you just have this totally disjointed experience, and customers feel that. They feel it if they have to do the same thing 3 times in 3 places, or keep telling you. So funny enough, on my last flight, I sat next to a lady who works in tech, not in our industry at all. And I had told her what I did for a living. And she's like, if you could fix this one thing for me, then I would love it. I hate that every time I show up at the front desk, even though I've stayed at that hotel 100 times, that they ask me, is this my first time with them? And it is so annoying. And it's just a little thing, but it annoyed her so much. And I'm like, well, they can know that, but everything's fragmented, and so they don't. They have the information,
Yeah.
right? So I think a lot of it is that. I think that it's the 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 solutions that we're giving to our customers and our options, it's a very broken journey.
Yeah. Yeah, the fragmented tech stack, huge
Our favorite
problem.
topic, right?
I love that topic. Um, First step, like, what can hoteliers do tomorrow to get off the points and start developing relationships?
Mm, I think having a tech stack that's integrated is the first thing to do, and to look at, or really look at how the tech stack you have, what are the gaps that are there, um, refine that experience. So you just want to take away anything that makes the guest experience feel repetitive. So I think that what can happen immediately is that audit of what it is that you have in place, and what are those holes, and then try to and ask the questions of whoever your providers are. What these are the holes that we have, and what options are there to fill these holes, or even sometimes it requires operational change, right? No system is going to solve everything for you. There's and you have to be willing to make operational changes as well sometimes. But I think that having those personalized follow-ups with the customer, and really thinking through, like, how can you keep that cohesive journey all the way through, which isn't new information, right? We've been talking about this for years and years, but I think our industry just hasn't been quick to really adopt it all the way through, right?
Do you
We
do
have
you think
this.
hoteliers struggle with the understanding the process or the flow, or they don't have time, or what do you think it is? Like
I think
that
it's all
audit
of
that you're
the
talking about, like, huh?
Yeah. It's a lot. That's a loaded question. It's a lot of things. I mean,
Hard hitting.
there's time. There's a perception of time. Do I have the time to do these things? There's money. Cost is always an issue. There's a sea of tech vendors that are out there that all purport to do the same type of thing, and many of them do. There's a lot of solutions that can keep one piece, but that's the problem, is that in the sea of tech vendors and solutions that are out there, each one of them is like a single piece of the pie. and those pieces aren't connecting in the same pie plate, right? Like you can get the best in class of all of these things, but if they don't talk to each other effectively, you can't do it. And so that's hard to map out, I think, for a lot of hoteliers. I think that you sometimes we end up having to buy for price, what's in our budget, what can do we think we can afford, and then we end up with maybe an experience or being able to offer an experience that's lower. With independence, a lot of times I think it's we are doing so many hats. You're every person that's working in those properties is doing so many jobs that the idea of trying to take on, just even if it's just a technology switch for the better that you can afford, that's a scary proposition. It's hard because those kinds of changes are complicated. I don't know if I answered the question, but I think it's a lot of things like that you just but you at the end of the day, if you want the outcome, if you know the outcome that you're looking for, then rather than trying to create a solution, going around as you're auditing, kind of looking at what it is that you have and look at it from a different lens of what outcomes am I looking for, and then start looking at what solutions can provide the outcomes, and be less biased against like how the outcome is achieved. Because I think that sometimes we're also, at least in my experience, kind of very stuck in our ways operationally or in what we think we know, and become a little bit less flexible on what we're willing to do to achieve said goal.
Yeah. There's a big shift in the book from points to instant value. You've brought it up several times already. You know,
Mhm.
what does instant value really look like? I mean, you've brought up a couple of examples, but can we dig a little deeper?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it always starts with that fragmented experience, but I really think it's that example of what the woman told me on the airplane,
Yeah.
right? That you know me. I've been here 100 times. Thank you for returning, Allegra. So nice to see you again. You don't know me, but it's nice to feel like you do. Um, I think so. One thing you get, I talk to a lot of hotels about, or they ask about, oh, they don't want to do just a discount because this is the main static standard is log in, be a member, get a discount on your room rate, right? So there's an intrinsic value there that is financial, but value prop of what you're getting, the rate can be the same. The rate could almost be a little bit less relevant, although in some markets people are very price driven. These are there are market specific types of things to look at, but that I think some of the I've seen some of the loyalty programs out there will actually do this, where your booking policies are completely different for members for the same price point, right? So maybe I have to prepay, or maybe I have a deposit, or maybe I don't get an upgraded room, or maybe it doesn't come with breakfast, or maybe it doesn't come with parking, but for members it does, but the price point's the same. So the hotel isn't necessarily losing significant amounts of revenue by doing high discounts, but they're adding a value to it. So simple things like you can have an early check-in that you don't pay for, or a late checkout that we're not going to charge you for if you're a member. You can do it by levels. Um, Adding in those kind of value into the rate, or the hotel of what is being offered to the person for booking direct, for being a member of your program, doesn't always have to be just a rate, right? But then also something that I think people fail to look at and recognize a lot of times is that we need to, a lot of hotels have this challenge with like OTA, the OTA makes a business, right? Where we want more direct bookings, and we do, but OTAs are also a part of our ecosystem in the travel industry, and they do provide, they're very relevant and very helpful, and it's good to have OTA partners, and we, in our world, we certainly really value our OTA partnerships and stuff, but having a healthy balance of that, OTA to direct. And when I talk to hotels about offering a value up for members when they're booking direct versus OTA, they're still going to be financially ahead because of the margin difference that they're not paying. So they even if the price is, say, 20% lower or 10% lower, than the price that's on the OTA for somebody that's booking direct as a member. They're not paying that margin cost that they're paying to the OTA to get the guest. And then they also have an opportunity to retain the guest, because guests are, you have a good experience, you come in, you had the value, you're likely to go back, right? Or to think of them, or to tell people about it, which means other people will experience it. Oh, you stayed there? Did you have a good experience? Yeah. So then that goes into the review, which goes into the rate, which goes into revenue management. So it kind of creates like this ecosystem of things. But I kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit, but just I think that all these things are connected, and the value doesn't always have to be price driven. Um,
Yeah.
and then when you give people a good experience, they remember that has intrinsic value too.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about hyper personalization. Like,
Mm.
so I think what you're talking about, I mean, goes a step further with personalization. Talk to us about that.
Yep. So obviously, you're always looking at what people have consented to do, right? So there's certainly across the globe, there are different rules and regulations around what you can do with guest information, and so abiding within those, our systems provide all the tools needed to do that. And you want to, as a hotelier, you want to make sure that your systems provide those tools, right? No matter which tools you're using, because you'll abide by consent. So assuming that you have whatever's in place, knowing what the guest has done, knowing where they're at in the programs, knowing where they're at in their journey, and then responding to that. So some examples could be, well, I've already mentioned like custom rates. So Allegra signs in, and she gets offered up this, whatever, it's a package or something that is special to Allegra, because I know Allegra and the booking engine knows Allegra, and so says, "Hi Allegra, here's your offer." And it is really truly just for me. It's not something you pretend is just for me and give to everybody. It really actually is for me. um, but then also, like, you could technically change content on your website. So there are tools that will look at what the customer has done in their journey, what they've booked in their past, what they have coming up in their future, and it can manipulate some of the content that they see in their screen and the website, or in the booking journey, so that you're personalizing their online experience to what, based on what you know about them, and what they've done from a business perspective with you, where they are in their loyalty program, which then just encourages retention. They're less likely to abandon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you measure success? And you know what? The other thing is that, and I know you've touched on this, and we've talked about this in the past. A loyalty program does not have to be super sophisticated. Um, so measuring success can be a range, right? But like, what do you think?
Uh, well, funny thing, the olden days, kind of, we they would talk a lot about how many people did you have in your programs, right? So
Hmm.
some marketers would look at your metrics of member data. How many member profiles do you want? And depending on what was important to whoever was asking, you might look at, oh, we've had this many memberships in 5 years, versus what's really relevant, which may be last 18 months. Um, so looking at that isn't enough. I think it's kind of old school of, oh, I have 1 million members, but you don't really, if only, what'd you say, 15% of them are engaging,
Yeah.
then you have, 150,000 or 15,000. I don't know if my math is bad. So not just looking at the signups, but looking at the engagement scores. So what are they booking? Are they staying with you? Are they engaging with your property? Some properties have more than just the hotel room stay, right? So they might have spa, restaurant, or something on there, and maybe people are a member of their program and engage in those services, but they don't stay. So being able to see that, know that, and learn that about them. It's understanding how engaged they are with your marketing and tying that back into loyalty, but figuring out, are they engaged with your program by way of, if you're offering rewards, for example, are they redeeming them? Are they using them? Because if by and large people aren't, then they're not engaged with your program, right? And that
Yeah.
either that is a marketing concern or a pricing concern with the offer, or it's a that the reward you're giving isn't valuable, maybe. So there's you really need to look at all of those levels of engagement. So not just do you have signups and not just have they stayed at the hotel before, but what else are they doing? Are they opening all of your emails? You know, are
Hmm.
they clicking on things? Are they end up making other kinds of purchases? When they do, are they purchasing direct or are they still purchasing through third party? Um, and then aggregating all that together to determine what does actual loyalty engagement look like, because it isn't just how many members do you have in your database
Yeah.
ever.
How do you think hotels can engage the younger generation? It seems a little more demanding,
Mm.
looking for these qualities.
Right. So I remember no, I remember the days when it was, does your hotel have a really great restaurant? And the hotel restaurants were the big deal, right? And so you'd stay at a hotel because they had like the best restaurant ever, or you would go to that restaurant whether you were staying at the hotel or not. And that's still true in some places, but most people, mostly now, it's all of that instant gratification, right? I'm going to say my generation, a little bit younger, um, they want to feel important. They will not respond well to that interaction I described where I felt like I was like a third class citizen arriving at the same time as somebody who was treated like a first class citizen, right? You don't ever want that experience to be true. They need to feel that, and not just in person, because when they arrive oftentimes they'll want to use kiosks and use technology for some of the things that are happening on property, so you may not get the opportunity anymore to wow them with how amazing your front office staff is, because maybe you're using technology to facilitate their check-in process and get them in the room so they don't ever talk to somebody, right? Which means your online journey needs to be really engaging, and they need to feel good doing it. So I think it all comes back to just instant to recognition programs. So rather than archaic loyalty programs, I call them archaic when it's all earn a million points and be able to get maybe a free night in 10 years, like there's times when that's valuable, and there are certainly brands where that's really valuable and useful, but for many travelers that's not how they travel, and they need to feel recognized immediately from the moment that they're engaging with your hotel, and that starts these days, that starts online. It's not even on the phone anymore.
Yeah. There is how do I get into this to wrap up?
Mm.
There is an unreal global economic reset going on, and it's got airlines and hotels in a tithy.
Yeah.
I believe it'll all settle down. So I don't think there's going to be bad sentiment. Like I've read some of this, maybe for a little while. But here's what I believe with the economic investment commitments that are coming into the US, I think corporate travel is going to explode. How could it not? Therefore, if I'm right, I mean, do you have any advice to wrap up what hotels should be doing, preparing for in the next 30, 60, 90 days?
I think it starts with the tech audit. I really think that um, taking a step back and then a view, a non-biased, this is our process, just pretend that you're walking into it for the very first time and look at the fundamentals of how your tech stack is adding up and how those systems talk to each other, and then finding out if they're are opportunities. So that could mean talking to your existing vendors and saying, what are we not doing? Right? What are we missing? Are there things we're not taking advantage of that we should be to help in these areas? And it could be changing some things operationally, but it's going to start with looking at what you're doing today, how your technologies are talking to each other, so that you can see if there are any opportunities for things that you could be taking advantage of. I think just really encouraging as much of a seamless experience for your travelers as you can is what makes all the difference. And I know that's not kind of a new story. That's I think for many of us that have been working in this area for a long time, this has been our story for a long time, but it doesn't it feels like it should be kind of the obvious first step, but I think that a lot of people are fearful of taking it either because of cost or time. But I I do think that it's an important step to take. And
Wouldn't the same audit a lot of what we're talking about would apply to improving direct bookings, not just
it does.
loyalty. So the same audit could kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
For sure, because those things are going to be tied together, right?
Mhm.
And then I think another thing which we've talked about a couple of times, which hoteliers that aren't doing some kind of an engagement program should really consider and doing one, and not thinking about, oh well, I have this big loyalty program I have to manage, and I don't have the people to do it, and I don't have the manpower to do it. There are very simple ways that you can engage with a CRM solution that has a loyalty component that is just very recognition based, and it becomes more of like a marketing effort, and more of just an engagement through the direct booking channels that can be done without having this overwhelming loyalty program, that you have to have bylaws for and terms and conditions and all of those things. You can do something that's very simple that can help to drive more direct and help to personalize that experience for all of your guests, that choose to engage. And I think that verifying that your tech stack will support doing something that's straightforward and simple and like that is important too, because now you're just driving more people to your channel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, highly recommend the 8,000 word loyalty book.
It's fun. It's a good
It's
one.
got a 90-day transformational plan in the back.
Oh, nice.
I mean, what more do you want?
What more do you want?
Um,
Answers.
yeah, the answers, yeah. Anybody can direct message me on LinkedIn and I'll get it to you. It's everywhere now this morning, so something to check out. Thank you so much, Allegra.
Thank you. It's always
And
fun time.
I know you had a really busy morning, and I appreciate you carving out time for us.
Anytime. I love talking about these subjects. They're my favorite.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.